Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Colorado Broadband Office's Lunch and Learn series. This session will focus on municipal and cooperative broadband networks. I'm Teresa Ferguson, Director of Federal Broadband Engagement with the CBO, and I will be your host for today's session. The goal of this webinar is to discuss the broadband journey of a few Colorado municipal and cooperative broadband networks. Over the course of the next hour, we will hear from Muni and cooperative leaders that will share their organization's best practices, lessons learned, what challenges they continue to face, and how the conversation about federal stimulus funding could impact the future of broadband infrastructure investment in Colorado. We'll kick off today's webinar with an introduction of each of our panelists, which will be followed by a brief introductory remarks by each panelist. Our panelists have been asked to provide a high-level overview of their Muni or cooperative broadband journey, as well as to identify topics of particular interest for a deeper dive during the panel discussion portion of our agenda. We will close with an audience Q&A following the panel discussion. But before we get started, a few logistics for today's webinar. To prevent background noise, please keep yourself muted during the presentation. As I mentioned, we will allow sufficient time for Q&A following our panel discussion. Sometimes if you mute your video as well, it helps to focus the video as well so we have enough bandwidth for the display of the video of our panelists. You can enter questions in the chat at any time during the webinar, and the CBO staff will read them during the Q&A. We will also provide an opportunity for you to unmute yourself to ask questions during the Q&A. Today's webinar will be recorded and available at the Colorado Broadband Office website at broadband.co.gov. To kick things off, I will introduce you to our panelists and allow each of them to provide opening remarks and identify topics they would like to discuss in depth during our panel discussion. Our first panelist is Valerie Dodd. Valerie is the Executive Director, next slide, at the City of Longmont. Valerie is a customer-focused, results-driven marketing and operations executive with 25 years of experience in the telecom industry, beginning her career with Windstream, or formerly Alltel, moving to a startup competitive local exchange carrier, and later joining CenturyLink. Valerie recently brought her private industry telecom experience to the City of Longmont, where she is responsible for the city-run Gigabit fiber internet enterprise launched over 6 years ago. She's thrilled to be part of a successful endeavor with a 100% fiber network that provides gigabit internet to over 23,000 households and businesses. Valerie's sporting trend-setting sunglasses today because she recently had eye surgery, and I've been recommending that she needs to protect her vision, but really, Valerie's just that cool. So, Valerie, tell us about Nextlight and the City of Longmont's broadband journey.
Well, my poor joke is that our future is so bright, I have to wear shades. So yeah, is that back to the 80s? But anyway, thank you so much, Teresa, for the introduction and the opportunity to talk about Nextlight, which I love to do. I've been here about a year and a half, and it's just been nothing but sheer fun. We have a superior product and customers that love it. So happy to be here. So looking at our first slide, I'm just going to quickly orient you in Nextlight's vision and mission, because I think it's really always important to start with those things. Why are we here? Why did the City of Longmont decide that we needed to build a broadband network? And so really our vision at Nextlight is a fully connected Longmont that is empowered with the resources for life. Our mission is to deliver our customers a world of possibility by providing fast, reliable fiber connectivity while being accessible and easy to do business with. A couple key points I want to hit here. We're talking about a fully connected Longmont. We're not talking about cherry picking neighborhoods with high density or preferred demographics. We're talking about measuring our success on really how many households that we get connected, because really the goal is a fully connected Longmont. Additionally, we want to be accessible. And so for accessible for us means, for one, you've got fiber that's right there, and it is fiber. It's not copper. It's not an antiquated solution. And so it's fiber, it's accessible, meaning we provide great value. You can afford it. You can come down the street and talk to a representative in person to get our services. You can call, you can talk to a bilingual rep if that's the need, but it's really about trying to reach every single citizen in the city of Longmont. And the other part of it is being easy to do business with. I think there's always an opportunity in this industry to improve the customer experience and the customer service we deliver. So really, that is what our team is focused on: is accessibility, affordability, easy to do business with, and reaching every single household. So really proud of where we're headed, but it's been a long journey, as you will see on the upcoming slide. This timeline has been extensive. So the city of Longmont's been trying to get fiber into the market for a while. Back in the late 90s, LPC, Longmont Power and Communication, the electric utility, which is run by the city, and Platte River Power Authority were trying to build a fiber network to really connect the substations so that they could communicate, share data, et cetera. And then it kind of is like, wait, we might as well build fiber so that we can provide internet to our residents. And as that interest really began, I think the competition got wind of that. And I believe it was in 2005 that a Senate Bill 152 was passed, which blocked the entry of municipalities into the telecommunications and broadband space. So the city fought back hard. Unfortunately, we were up against a lot of dollars and did not overcome that Senate Bill 152 the first pass, but we certainly did the second time around, which is terrific. And then subsequent to approving the repeal of Senate Bill 152, the residents of the city did approve a $45 million bond to move forward with NextLight, which would be the city's managed and operated fiber network. And then we were able to turn up service in November of 2014. And not long after that, PC Magazine named NextLight, Longmont's NextLight, the fastest ISP in the country. Pretty cool stuff. It took a while to get here, but a lot of fight, a lot of commitment from the community, and we made it happen. So where are we today? So today we're sitting at about a 90% enablement of the premises that are in the community or the rooftops. We're not at 100%. We won't ever be at 100%. And part of that is a little bit of a challenge that I think we'll delve into here after the introductions. And that is the issue of the inability to get access agreements signed by all property managers. So there might be some mobile home parks or apartment managers that don't want us in because they're getting door fees or payments from a competitor for every customer that they bring them. So it would be cutting into their pockets if we were to get into those properties. So I think that's a real opportunity for the industry to try to look at revisiting that so that every resident has a true choice and it's really a fair competitive marketplace. Secondly, we're at over 23,000 customers. Teresa mentioned that. I love to mention it. It's terrific. That represents about 58% penetration of the premises we pass. If you back out those households that don't have home-based internet, then we're probably looking at 65% market share, which is terrific, as we do have two formidable competitors in the marketplace. Of the customers we have over 700 that are benefiting from an income qualifying service that we deployed at the onset of the pandemic. We realized, wow, kids have to learn from home. Internet, again, has to be accessible. So we introduced a $14.95 price point for 25 meg service, which we later quadrupled and provided 100 meg service for. So really excited and proud of that really acquisition of those 700 customers. And then we're nearing about $18 million in annual revenue, and the growth rates really continue to climb. Last year, we had about a 9% growth rate. This year, we're looking at over 6%, and that well exceeds what was in the original business case. So I hate to say, but we've been wildly successful, and I feel like I need to knock on some wood, but pretty confident that the residents have spoken and they love what we're doing. What we're offering is 1 gigabit internet at $69.95. It's a great value. We have the $44.95 for the income qualifying households. And then we have the 100 meg internet, which I mentioned had previously been 25 meg, but we were able to quadruple the speed because we knew families needed that. These are symmetrical speeds that we're talking about as well. So for the 100 meg, you can get it for $39.95, or if you're income qualifying, only $14.95. We also offer a digital phone service, which residents do appreciate. And then particularly our commercial customers really do sign up and subscribe to our digital phone service at a high rate. And why have we been so successful? It's probably a longer story than this, but an unmet need. Customers weren't getting access to adequate speeds. 10 megabit internet wasn't fast enough. So there really was a tremendous need from the marketplace. We had community support over the years. As I mentioned, it was a long time coming. And so really the community had become very aware of the need, and we're excited about the opportunity. As I also mentioned, Longmont Power and Communications has been around for almost 100 years and provided very reliable and affordable electric service. So the city had proven itself as a provider of really a utility or an essential service, and people trusted and liked the city and said, you know what, I trust them for my internet. So the other part of it, which is I think also really large, especially in this community, it's about doing business locally. People really want to keep the dollars here. So that was another piece of it. And then the network pathway. I'd be lying if I said, that the LPC didn't literally pave the way for us. So having that Longmont Power and Communications utility in the marketplace really allowed us to have early and easy access to underground facilities, et cetera. We were able to co-locate our fiber huts within substations. And then also we had the rights of way and easements well established. So those things certainly were critical success factors for us. And lastly, what's next for Next Light in Longmont? We are partnering with the school district, St. Vrain Valley School District, to provide free service to students. Excited about that. I think we'll cover it later in the program. Also, we're in the process of testing Wi-Fi 6 capability to make sure that we are optimizing the wireless signal and propagating as much as possible within customers' households. We're also exploring a partnership whereby we can provide a bundle with a television or entertainment provider, maybe help people cut the cord that don't know how, help people sign up for HD antenna service, which will eventually be a free TV service, or is a free TV service after you pay for the installation and the equipment. So we're really trying to provide a service to our residents that's affordable and that couples very nicely with the internet. And then we're looking at 10G, 100G gigabit deployments coming soon. And then we're going to continue to build and grow with the city. Longmont continues to grow and have a lot of new growth, a lot of construction projects in the pipeline, which is really exciting. It also means we got to make sure that we, save the capital for those ventures. And then once we feel like we've completely built out the city of Longmont and done our work here, we will look to start picking off some peripheral areas because really we're here to make sure unserved areas are no longer in that situation. And then lastly, at some point, we're going to be spending off millions of dollars. We will soon pay down our debt, and we will have positive cash flow for which we can give back to the city. So really excited about what we're doing. Thanks for letting me do a long intro. I think, Teresa, you're muted.
Everybody has to do that once, and it's me this time. Sorry. Thank you, Valerie. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Chris Mcintyre, VP of Operations for Luminate Broadband. Chris Luminate is the subsidiary of Yampa Valley Electric, located in Steamboat Springs in Craig, Colorado. Chris has been in the telco and broadband industry for 20 years, including Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, and the Middle East. So he has worked for companies large and small, but finds his passion in building, supporting, and leading broadband organizations who are providing broadband to rural and unserved markets. Chris, please tell us more about Luminate and Yampa Valley Electric Association's broadband initiative.
Thank you, Teresa. I feel like we should have had Valerie back clean up since that was so good. So thank you for kicking us off as well as you did, Valerie. So yeah, as Teresa mentioned, Luminate Broadband, subsidiary of Yampa Valley Electric and Steamboat. So we don't have as much of a history in terms of deploying broadband here locally. Luminate got started in 2019, and we really got going at a pretty good clip last year. Really late last year is when we really saw a significant uptick in our subscriber intake rates, and a lot of that was a result of getting a lot of construction completed and getting to a point where we were able to focus on sales and marketing as opposed to just building out. So with all that, we're doing pretty good. We are also not quite exclusively, but I would say a 90-10 split. We're a fiber to the home, fiber to the business provider. The only difference, just given some of the vast terrain and some of the challenges that we have geographically, we also have a point-to-point wireless solution that also provides gigabit service, which is a pretty formidable fixed wireless solution. It was new to me here, and has served us pretty well. It really cuts down on some of the non-recurring costs that a customer might otherwise experience to get fiber all the way to their house. YDEA and Luminate have been incredibly successful within the grant space. You know, from federal grants to state grants to school district grants, and you know, Teresa, you know, I tip my hat to you. You've been a big part of our success there, and we've got a team here between both companies that puts a ton of effort into exploring what makes sense for Luminate, Yampa Valley Electric, and the customers. So that's probably our greatest success story thus far is all of our grants. In terms of where we're at today, we're nudging up against 800 customers, which isn't too bad. Some markets we've got 80% plus penetration, and other markets we're down around that 15-20%. So a lot of opportunity. That's the way I look at that. Not as a problem, but we just got to work a little bit harder and do a little bit better there. We've got quite a bit of competition almost in all of our markets. In the extremely rural areas, we've got some fixed wireless and of course satellite providers. But within Steamboat, within Craig, within Hayden, we've got a pretty substantial amount of competitors, both wireline and fixed wireless. So, you know, the challenge is here. We're willing to face it, and you know, as brand recognition and all that gets out, I think we'll be doing a pretty good job. If I were to back up in terms of, you know, why was Luminate created? So Steve Johnson, the CEO and general manager of Yampa Valley Electric, along with the board, had a vision to create a broadband service and co-ops. This is my first job at a electric cooperative. So a lot of lessons learned here, but you know, we've got the infrastructure in place. We've got the ability to do it. We can do it fast. We can do it efficiently, and it just makes a whole lot of sense for electric co-ops or anybody that owns, you know, the existing infrastructure to be able to build out fiber to the home and really provide a future-proof solution to its members as it is in the co-op space. Yeah, along with all the grants and the efficiencies and effectiveness of being able to build this out, Luminate's been pretty successful. You know, it's every day is a new challenge and a new opportunity. You know, the biggest challenge really is, particularly in the rural markets, extreme rural, is when can we get there? When can we get there? When can we get there? So fielding a lot of those questions. I wish we could do it a whole lot quicker and a whole lot faster and a whole lot sooner, but you know, the reality is our build season in Steamboat's pretty short, so we do our best. But it's, you know, it's great. I mean, the demand is there. The market is ripe for good broadband service. I think by and large the market is getting to the point where, you know, it just works isn't enough anymore. It needs to work well, and that's our goal. That's our mission, is to provide a future-proof solution to all the entire Yampa Valley. You know, a similar story in terms of product offering that Valerie kind of touched on. Voice and hosted PBX, or unified communications, as it can be referred to. That's a pretty big play that we see a lot of future and a lot of growth and opportunity in. You know, kind of the landline is dying, so that's really in support of a lot of the business space. In terms of the residential space, a similar setup. I really dig in the low income. I gotta sink my teeth into that and figure that one out. But yeah, we offer up to gigabit today. Ours is a little more expensive. We're at $99.95 for gigabit, and then our lowest package is 100. Mix wise, it's kind of interesting. Our highest take rate as it relates to mix is in the 250 meg range. So, you know, that's a good place to be. That's kind of the sweet spot. Yeah, similar Wi-Fi 6. You know, that's the name of the game in the future, and we're getting ready to roll our own app out at the help of our partners. So that'll be fun. You know, work on trying to make that experience better from first touch point to hopefully when the customer passes or moves. That's our goal. So that's all I've got, Teresa, and thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I know I heard a little bit in there, wanting to get there faster, quicker, better. I hope you'll touch on some issues in the panel discussion about things I know you've experienced, and access to rights of way and easements, and then the supply chain challenges many of us are going to be many of the providers will be dealing with. So I'll just tee up for those during the panel discussion. So next up is Coleman Keane, Broadband Executive Director of Connection at the City of Fort Collins. Coleman brings 25 plus years of experience in finance, IT, business planning, and project management to his role with Connection. His experience in fiber optic networks, from the initial business planning and technical architecture to software implementation, has been instrumental in the success of the municipally owned utility, EPB. Additionally, Coleman has worked with numerous other cities, utilities, and co-ops to launch their fiber optic networks. Coleman, please tell us more about Fort Collins' muni broadband experience.
Sure. Thank you, Teresa. I've been on this journey for helping communities, launch broadband systems for over 10 years, and it's really exciting for me. I've been really rewarding. What's really, exciting to me today is the increased interest that communities have in deploying their own broadband systems. Not only that, but the funding opportunities that are available over the last couple of years, and as we look into the future. These are some of the best funding opportunities I've seen over the last 15 years for broadband initiatives. It's a really exciting time to be in this arena. The other thing that I've kind of learned over the years is that competition is good. So when communities start talking about doing their own broadband systems, the competition, the incumbents take notice, and a lot of times they'll improve their networks, they'll lower their prices, improve their customer service. So these are win-win situations where you can provide better than what the competition can provide, but those who want to stay with the competition still end up with a better product. So, I think it's very important as communities are looking at this, they look at both sides of that picture and understand that the overall community can win, even if you may only get a 40 or 50% take rate. So for the city of Fort Collins, this has been a long journey, just like Valerie had talked about. We started in the early 2000s. We had to overturn SB 152. We had to go for a second vote to get the funding available, all of those type of things. And what we saw, and I've seen this across the country also, is that you get the increased citizen participation that you have. This really reinvigorates the community. You get a lot of community groundswell behind it, and that's what we saw here. We had a broadband and beers group. We had all kinds of city-led or community-led initiatives to kind of get the vote for our bond issues voted as a positive. And so when we looked at doing that, the incumbents came in with about $1 million in advertising spend to fight us going into the broadband business. And when we look at what the community groups actually came with, they raised like $15,000 as to fight against that. In the end, the vote was overwhelmingly positive for Fort Collins to go ahead and go into the broadband business. When we were doing that, the initial drive for Fort Collins going down this road was a lot of things. We wanted everybody to have access. So we wanted ubiquitous access to true broadband. And that's the conversation. What is true broadband? From my perspective, minimum true broadband is 100 megs symmetrical. For Fort Collins, we launched 6 gigs. Gig is our minimum speed. Fort Collins is a nice small mid-sized city, very forward-looking city. But even in Fort Collins, prior to us launching our broadband, there were areas that had no access to broadband. And there were a lot of underserved parts of our community that only had 3 megs DSL, that type of a product. So getting ubiquitous coverage was a key goal. The other thing is that, we wanted our citizens to be able to fully participate, in our society, our democracy, and in our economy. So we want them to actually be able to fully engage in what is our digital lifestyle today. So as we kind of drive down that thing, there's, education that comes into play, as well as, access. All of those things are part of launching a good broadband system. you know. And the way we talk about it is, you know, we're trying to connect our community at the speed of light. That's our ultimate goal here. And so right now we're about halfway through, a little bit more than halfway through with our physical build. And things are going well. I mean, we've had our challenges just like everybody else, but, you know, my team, problems come up, they you know, knock them down and move on to the next one. It's definitely, you know, an entrepreneurial startup type environment that, you know, kind of drives the creative juices and the teams playing well together. And, you know, we're moving forward very quickly. You know, we're starting to pivot and see what's next, right? So when we look at a platform like this, you know, this is a platform that we want the community to engage in and take advantage of. This is more than just about providing triple play services that we provide, internet, voice, and video. And so, you know, how do we get the community to engage and leverage this platform here? The city as a platform type process, you know, so smart grid, smart city initiatives, and trying to bring together entrepreneurial type mindsets, figure out how they can leverage and drive their own economic well-being by leveraging the system that we're building. So Fort Collins, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're launching a fiber-based broadband system, fiber to the home, passing every home and business, 1 gig minimum speed. So we launched with 1 gig and 10 gigs. Our backbones are built at 100 gigs. We have a very robust system that's going to serve the city well into the future. And so for us, you know, it's exciting times, and we're looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Coleman. I'm going to stick with the baseball analogies today. So batting cleanup is Kent Blackwell, Chief Technology Officer for Delta Montrose Electric Association and its broadband subsidiary, Elevate. Kent has been in the telecom industry for over 31 years. For the past 21 years, though, Kent has served with the within the electric cooperative space, providing internet, telephone, and video solutions for the member owners of rural and urban cooperatives. Kent, tell us the DMEA story, and I know it's a colorful one. We can't wait to hear about it.
Good. Well, thank you for inviting us. Thank you, everybody, for attending. You know, happy to be here and share our story. You know, DMEA, of course, an electric co-op on the Western Slope, serving, you know, for 83 years now, providing electric service for Delta and Montrose counties, as the name would imply. But, you know, our broadband story really started in 2016. For us, you know, kind of like you've heard some of the others speak to, it was an early investment in building fiber for us between our electric substations and tying our electric grid with, you know, the state-of-the-art communications paths. Well, our members, knowing that we were building that communications network and knowing the quality of service that they were getting from other providers in the area, came to one of our board meetings, monthly board meetings, and they came in mass. We had over 200, almost 300 members show up to one board meeting, you know, lined up to each individually speak and in an outcry, you know, demanding that DMEA get into the broadband business. And, you know, we heard the cry, we heard the demand, and in 2016, we started that effort. In the last 5 years, we've built a little over 1,000 miles of fiber optics. We've got a total of 3,000 miles to go. So we're only about a third of the way through the actual physical build. But in that first 1,000 miles, we've touched a little over half of our members. So we serve 34,000 electric meters. We've built almost 19,000 of those meters. So we're a little more than halfway, you know, when looking at the meters. But, you know, it doesn't take a mathematician to quickly figure out that, you know, the remaining mileage, the remaining distance to build is the more sparsely populated, the more expensive areas to build. And you know, again, as some of the others have touched on, you know, it's the right time for the industry, right time in our project build that, you know, so much attention is being placed on funding some of these rural builds. And it's very necessary funding that we need to make financially sound business decisions for the remainder of our build out areas. So, you know, it's a right time, right place opportunity for our co-op, and happy to be here and contributing to, you know, to make this happen. You know, mentioned the competitive nature. We provide service against 10 different competitors throughout our service territory. Our service footprint's not huge, but to have 10 different competitive providers in the area just speaks to, the competitive landscape that we're operating in. And for us, the biggest challenge that we seem to see on a repetitive basis is just, truth in advertising. The provide the services that you say you're going to provide. Be honest with your consumers. And what we've fought most is, as much as we're a complete fiber to the premise network, end to end, the services we provide are consistent. They don't take on the pressures that many of our competitors have. But what we are faced against is a lot of marketing and messaging by the competition that says that they can do things that are on parity and equal and equal to the services that we provide. But in the end, it leaves those customers frustrated and just jilted in the end. We've built to 10,000, or I'm sorry, we're serving 10,000 customers as of this year. So, we've made a good, strong headway. We're penetrating, our penetration ratio is about a little more than 55% at this point. So, we're really, making well with our commitments to the community. And, the co-op spirit is such that, we aren't as focused on a lot of the financial components that a lot of our competitors are. And for that reason, we feel that the co-ops and municipal broadband networks and the likes of us, most of us on the panel here, we represent a different segment than traditional financial motivated competition that we face. So, I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the details and a lot of different components. Happy to turn it back and, see what questions we have.
Well, thanks so much, Valerie, Chris, Coleman, and Kent, for sharing your stories. If my math is right, I was doing some quick math. I know the public looks at municipal and cooperative entry in broadband as something new, but you guys have been around 344 years total. If I combine all the age, not you individually, right? But the company. So, cooperatives and municipalities have been around for a very long time, providing a very essential service, that's electricity, right? So it's not like you're new to the game. So as we dive into the panel discussion, I want to talk to the audience just a little bit. My colleague, Megan Gernert, will be monitoring the webinar chat during the panel discussion. So please put your questions in as they occur to you. If you're like me at this point, if I don't write it down or say it, I forget it. So please, I know these panelists, they're sharing their stories with you today. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat, or Megan can directly ask your questions for you if you're shy and don't want to talk, but or we can pause. You can unmute yourself at the end and you can ask questions directly. So please, 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 that's why we have these experts here, is to answer the questions that you have in our audience. So I'm gonna jump into a couple of the questions that I heard early on from Valerie. Valerie, I think there's a couple of things that you wanted. I've sensed frustration in one thing and kind of being happy about the other. So you can pick if you want to go with happy first or frustrated. So I know you were talking about the school district partnership that you've got, and then struggling with, and sometimes serving those students, right? Because you face door fees or things of that nature to getting access. So why don't you combine those two topics and give us a little insight?
I will. And first, let me just say thank you, Teresa. You always do a great job of making us aware of opportunities and funding and partnerships that might be looming out there. So I think it was around the holidays when usually our heads are down trying to finish work or a project or something. And then Teresa starts pinging me, hey, Valerie, are you paying attention? There's the CCSG, Connecting Colorado Students Grant. And then I was like, oh, wow. And so I go and tap into our partners over at the St. Vrain Valley School District. hey, did you see this? This is coming down from the governor's office. This is a real opportunity. And so thanks to your heads up and your tremendous wealth of information about all these opportunities. But we were able to partner with St. Vrain Valley School District and within a couple of weeks respond to that grant. And in partnership with them, of course, it was done primarily by St. Vrain. And through that grant, we were able to get $1.3 million to go augment some of our network. And it's tough because I use these words carefully, and it's not like we would overbuild an existing network, but we're trying to augment the network and spend money through that grant program that we may not have already spent, because we, as I already mentioned, we're mostly 90% covered of the premises and rooftops in the community. But we realized there's a lot of people that are very mobile and transient within a community, and they may live in one mobile home park one week, in an apartment, or at a friend's the next week. And so sometimes a fixed solution doesn't work for them because they're sort of out and about, or maybe moving locations, with some housing insecurity. And so therefore, we are partnering with them to stand up a wireless network to enable access regardless of where those customers are. We're also leveraging that grant to fund some of the service from a fixed solution perspective, because many of those homes obviously fall within our fiber footprint. And so anyway, we're in the process of really, finalizing our plan whereby we can provide free service to these students 24/7. Not many questions asked, just a few qualifying, part of the free and reduced lunch program, boom. So that was a terrific opportunity, because we may not have had the funds within our own budget to do that without that grant. So super grateful for the insight and the ability to go do that, and for our fabulous friends over at the St. Valley School District. But then also we have the issue of those mobile home parks or apartments where the management is probably getting $30, $50, don't know for sure, per door, per customer. So as I mentioned earlier, that's a revenue stream they don't want to give up. And so for us to provide more competition, a better solution, a 1495 100 meg solution, which is really enviable, that would eat away from some of those profits by the mobile home parks.
I hear that as a call to action, Valerie. I know that's what I ask you guys to talk about too, is call to action. Do we need our legislators? Do we need our policymakers really, addressing these issues?
I agree, because it's really frustrating. I'll sit at a city council meeting and you've got people standing up saying, I want next light service. I want my dollars to stay in the community. I want access to those superior offers you have. I can't get them. And I'm over here going, my hands are tied. So it's frustrating. So yeah, those are some passions and frustrations that we have. But then that's also sometimes a wireless solution can permeate some of those properties where we're not allowed. Of course, you have to have some, receivers, and there's a challenge there. But we're getting pretty creative about how we can make sure that truly everyone has access.
Excellent. Okay, Coleman, I'm gonna pick on you next. I loved you. You dove in a little, but you dipped your toe in. Talk to us. What do you think the definition of broadband service should be? What are you calling to arms? The legislators and policymakers at a federal and state level. What do you think? Where do you think we should be falling? Oh, Coleman, you're on mute. You did it. Yay! I passed it to you.
Here we go. Patience, right? Today when you look at utilization in the home and streaming video is one of your biggest users today. And, that's pretty much, if you're using Microsoft Teams or something like that, that's 4 or 5 megs per stream. If you have 5 family members kind of using that, you're going to be tapping out 25 megs. And we start doing overheads on top of that and stuff like that. You really need 50 minimum to kind of support that type of usage in a typical family home. And that's just to get by today, right? And so these networks are not cheap. When you're putting them in the ground and you're looking at something that's going to last 30 or 40 years, you need to build them to meet the future needs. And to me, right now, the minimum target should be 100 symmetrical. One of the things that we learned through COVID is that upstream matters, right? So when you're sitting there and you're streaming video out today for meetings and stuff like that, then you need to have that capacity, and 3 megs is not going to cover it. So to me, there are billions of dollars being, keyed up for building these networks and stuff like that. And, we should be setting that standard to be future-proof. I really want to say a gig. I mean, if you're going to build 100 symmetrical, you might as well go for a gig. But, to me, just to be realistic, 100 meg symmetrical is the minimum that we should be targeting.
Well, you jumped right in. You didn't hesitate. You just gave me a number, and I appreciate that. If you're ready, let's rock and roll here. Or do you have a call to action from legislators as well, or nationally, right, and locally at our state level about self-determination for our communities? So talk to me a little bit about that.
I think every community should have the right for self-determination. If they want to go into these, build these networks, like I said, they are expensive networks, but if the communities are willing to take that risk and they're willing to finance this, they should have the right to do so. And there's roughly 20 states across the U.S. that prohibit, both co-op and munis, take your pick, from actually going into this business. Colorado is kind of listed as one of those because of SB 152. And so, when I do talk with the FCC and stuff like that, these are issues that I bring up to them, right? The right for self-determination. So we should do away with prohibitions for communities being able to go in and do these networks if they so choose. And then also, if we're spending tax dollars or citizens' money, we should be future-proofing, right? And that means the 100 meg symmetrical, and they should be fiber-based networks. I'm not necessarily an advocate that it has to be fiber all the way to the home, but it should be fiber to the curb. And you should get it within 500 feet of the home, and then determine what your drop is going to be, whether it's it's a 5G drop or whether it's a fixed wireless or whatever. Right now those networks are very expensive also, and so to me, if you're going fiber deep, you might as well do the fiber drop.
Well, thank you, Coleman. That's perfect. That's exact. I kind of just wanted to hear what was inside your head when you're talking about self-determination and broadband speed. So I'm gonna invite Chris in a little bit on this one, because I know he's looking at a huge build out in his area. Talk to me, Chris, about what you're worried about on labor and supply chain issues. What are you seeing? What are you feeling now? What are you afraid you're going to be experiencing with the next 5 years you've got to build?
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of a two-part question. So in terms of labor, we're having a really hard time here finding. I mean, we get an okay amount of applicants, but and I don't know if everybody's market's similar to this, but within the Yampa Valley, I mean, housing inventory is extremely low, and I realize this isn't a real estate discussion, but I think it plays into it. Inventory is extremely low, and the housing market is just booming. I've heard figures 30 to 40 and north of 40% in the last 12 months. So really difficult to find qualified applicants. And then if we do find them, finding affordable housing for them. So that's been a real struggle. I mean, that's my pain point, what keeps me up at night. So that I would say that's one part of the question. The other part of the question is really around supply chain, which I guess human resources is part of that supply chain, but specifically in terms of building out broadband networks. I mean, we're all feeling this pinch, depending on your manufacturers, vendors, distributors. I mean, we've got materials that are out 50 plus weeks. So what that means really from a planning perspective, and I'm sure Ken's feeling about this too, being in a massive build out effort, is we have to plan, we almost have to plan real specifically for 2 years out on what we're going to do. So we're not maintaining an excess inventory sitting on all those dollars that could otherwise be used doing something else. And now I hear, that's kind of leaking into the oil and gas space, because there's, production somewhat shut down. So conduit, the plastics that Dow make that are part of the conduit. Now there's a delay within getting, conduit in a reasonable production line to get out. And that's never been an issue. I mean, conduit's always been, oftentimes you can just go get it from, Denver or Houston or whatever. So now we're looking at lead times there. And then silicon, I always get the two mixed up. Not the Valley, but the Valley, what's in the chips. So there's a strain there, and a lot of that's just from Asian production. So certain manufacturers are struggling there. There are a couple that made the bet and purchased extra, so they're not having as difficult of a time. But it just kind of depends on what day of the week and what kind of material you're after, what your lead times are going to be. So to make real quick knee-jerk decisions is getting to be harder and harder and harder. And a lot of the funding, which we're extremely grateful for, has timelines associated with it. So in order to be, put your hat, put your name in the hat in order to qualify and be opportunistic for some of these grants, you got to have the material on hand, or you got to have a way to get it in order to meet some of the tight deadlines. We have been pretty successful so far, but how long can we sustain that? I don't know. We're trying. But,
well, Chris, I won't ask you for your sweet fishing hole on getting that supply, because I know you won't share those with everybody on this call. But I gotta bring Kent into this conversation from the perspective of something you mentioned, Kent. It's like, so promises, right? What promises industry makes, right? I heard a little bit in that. Are you concerned about what is being reported as being provided in areas, and that then precluding eligible federal funding dollars for those areas? Is that kind of what you were alluding to there? Talk to me a little bit about, promises to the customer and promises to the community, and how that is playing out as we look at the federal funding out there.
No, I mean, good question. I mean, there's honestly two different angles to this. I was actually speaking to the marketing, the speak of up to and advertised promises by our competitors and what they will do for a customer, but fail to do. And, it's a bad experience for those customers when that happens. It's honestly kind of tainted the industry as a whole. Our reputation as a newcomer into the industry is proven. We don't believe what you're going to do. And, you're just like the rest of them. You're going to sell us something less than, you're going to provide something less than what you're selling us. And so, it's been an uphill struggle in overcoming some of those mixed marketing messages of our competition. But what you're framing is equally just the same issue, only it's at the federal and state level reporting, where our competitors are reporting to those entities, and to their credit or allowance, those programs do allow them to report advertised speeds, but reporting advertised speeds does again paint the illusion for state and federal bodies that there is broadband services in places that there's not reliable and consistent, stable services that matches what we're putting out there. We're making a massive investment. Our complaint is that everybody should be measured by that same ruler. Be honest about what you're doing for that customer, be honest in your reporting to the state and federal governments, and then we'll meet on the competition playing field and truly see which one the customers want to pick.
Thanks, Kent. I appreciate it. Okay, guys, so we've got only about 10 minutes left, and I do want to get some of the questions from the chat and from the audience. So Megan, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment to either summarize or call on the individuals asking questions in the chat.
Thanks, Teresa. So there's a few questions in here, and it looks like I think Valerie has gone in and Kent has gone in to answer a few of them, but I'll give the other panelists an opportunity to talk about these as well. The first question is, how does your actual take rate compare to the forecasts? And it looks like Valerie put in, we're almost double initial penetration rates. Business case had about 35%, but we are nearing 60. Kent says our business entry forecast targeted 40% penetration take rates, and we are currently over 50. So we can give Coleman and Chris an opportunity to jump in on those.
So we're still, as I mentioned earlier, about halfway through our build out. So right now we're not releasing actually what our take rates are, but I can say that what we're seeing is that we're getting to our anticipated take rate very quickly. So, normally I would say that you're going to hit your take rate somewhere between 12 and 18 months after you kind of build out an area. And we're getting there usually in 6 to 9 months kind of a time frame. So right now we're really happy with our take rate.
And Chris, I heard you say, you gave a couple of numbers on this, but we might need to repeat them for the audience.
Yeah, am I happy with my take rates? No. And it's not for a lack of trying and a lack of effort. It's just, we're not where we want to be. Are we a little bit behind the business case? The answer is yes. We're a startup, right? We've been doing this, 15, 18 months. So getting the team built is important. Building out the construction side is really challenging. And then folding in marketing and sales, fast following with that. We're getting better, but we're not where we want to be. But again, I think I said it earlier. It's a good place to be. We can really only go up. And I think it's probably a pretty solid consensus that we have next to zero churn. Customers don't leave us for competition. So every customer we get, just like everybody else, we got to go steal them. We don't have anybody sitting there waiting on us. So, we got to market, we got to get them, we got to prove to them, we got to educate them. And once we get them, we're good. So it's just a matter of time, but no, we're not where we want to be. And that's why we've got a team that works hard every day to improve penetration, improve customer service, and make that experience exceptional.
Thanks, Chris. Megan, did we have another good question for the panel?
Sure. Do you lease your fiber infrastructure to permit applicants wanting to install in your right of way?
So I believe the question might be, allow others to use our, say our easements or, poles and other infrastructure for further of their own projects. But, for us, honestly, in 2019, Senate Bill 109 kind of pushed us into that landscape, if you will. We have to make our easements where we've allowed ourselves, our own competitive broadband company, or another to come in and use our rights of way. We then have to open that door for others, that also wish to use those easements and infrastructure to place their facilities. So by state regulation, yes, we have to at this point.
Great answer. By statute. Coleman or Chris, what do you guys, or Valerie, are you doing anything different to just adhering?
Yeah, as a municipal, we have the same, people have a right to the right of ways and stuff like that if they qualify as a communications company. But from a broadband perspective, we kind of consider that wholesale. And so we have retail and wholesale, so we will work with other entities on wholesale deals. An example would be, cellular backhaul and that type of stuff. As we move forward in time, I'm hitting my take rate and everything is good, I might actually, enable competitors inside my footprint also. But it kind of falls into incremental revenue and that kind of stuff down the road.
Chris or Valerie, if you have a different answer, I'd invite you in. If not, we can let those two answers stand. They're good. Is that good, Chris? I think there was one more question I just saw, Megan, the last one from Mark, that I think would be really good for the entire group.
Yeah, so I'll read this off verbatim so I don't mess it up. In the rural areas, what are you experiencing as the cost per passing? Are you hoping to see investments in broadband from the cities and counties in your areas via the American Rescue Plan?
So Teresa, if I can, I guess, hog the mic for just one more minute. We set a financial goal for each of our passings. Anything that's going to cost us more than $2,500 per home to reach, we need to find subsidy programs. So, quickly, we have kind of a financial goal for each passing that, we have that, that not to exceed value kind of already set to keep our business plan in check and make sure we don't get wildly out of control with costs on some of our early build. So, the second part of that question, we're still very much watching the ARP and how those funding programs are going to roll forward. We're definitely interested in connecting with cities and counties in our areas to try and, be that subsidy mechanism. So absolutely, it's a resounding yes for us.
And I think I'll echo what Kent said. Fortunately, in Longmont, we have pretty good density, so we don't have that scenario where we're spending a couple of $1,000s per premise passed. But we do have those neighboring peripheral communities that are in that scenario. And so that's why they are unserved today. And many of them are operating off of copper networks. And so that additional, ARPA funding would be very beneficial to really help subsidize those high cost areas.
And for Fort Collins, we kind of look at this as a regional play. I mean, we're kind of, landlocked with our city limits, so to speak. But we have built our network to where we can help support the areas that surround us that may not be big enough or have the economies of scale to get connectivity to the world. And so, we do want to see all of Northern Colorado embrace broadband, and we're here to support them any way we can. So we'd love to see them take advantage of the federal dollars that are available and state dollars that are available.
As aggressive as your group was, Chris, with Yampa, I don't have to even guess that you guys are very interested in ARP funding. Am I correct?
Yeah. I guess I'll just look at it through a little bit different lens. And we talk about broadband. What's the definition of broadband? And I think you can take that same argument with homes passed, right? It's always going to be different, especially when you get in extremely rural areas. Homes passed, you can look at that more as what's the route mile cost. There's a lot of factors that go into that. It's not really a homes passed equation all the time, but that's where you get in trouble a little bit too, right? Because you can pass a home, but then the drop is yet another 2 miles to reach the home. So a home pass doesn't necessarily equal a resident or business served. And that's where the struggle is, because that 10,000 foot drop is, let's say a run rate of $10, right? That's a big number. And that's not a non-recurring charge that person's probably willing to pick up. So that's where I hope, a lot of the grants and they have been moving this direction where drops are included, or at least, we've got to do a good job at entertaining that drops need to be included in that, because that's a big part of the cost, and the homes passed doesn't get the service to the people.
I appreciate that, Chris. It's a very valid point. You can't just narrow it down to dollars and cents sometimes. So I do want to offer, if anyone does want to ask a question from the audience live, unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please, and ask. You can get the last question. See, folks are always shy. So if I hear you jump in, you can jump over me. Okay. I like to do this with finishing any of my webinars, guys. I'd like to give the speakers their last word, the last word, and provide closing remarks. If you could keep it brief, we'd love to hear just what what you would like the audience to take away as their call to action from this conversation. So I'm going to start from the bottom up. Since I started with Valerie, I'm going to start with Kent on this one. Kent, what's your 30-second elevator pitch?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of attention being placed on broadband these days. It's for good reason. It's a very needed service. We're highly supportive of, it being regulated as a utility level service, and just to get consumers the quality, consistent level of services that they want and deserve. Great. Coleman, what's your 30-second pitch?
Communities are willing to help, right? So, one thing about this broadband area is that if you want information, it's out there. I strongly encourage you to reach out to communities that have been successful and those that have struggled, and educate yourself on what it took for them to get where they are. And they're going to be more than willing to share with you, whether that's video conferences, visits, whatever it may be. I really want to encourage people to engage.
Chris, it's you.
Elevator pitch. Thank you for having me, Teresa. Appreciate everybody joining. I don't necessarily have an elevator pitch per se. I think there's a lot of education that needs to take place in the broadband industry. I think Ken touched on that quite a bit in terms of what the competition's doing. It's a marketing game, and I think what the four of us do is go actually deliver quality broadband service. And I know there's a lot more than just the four of us. We're not pretenders. We're not out there playing the game. We're not taking money that we're not spending for all the right reasons. We're doing this. We're working hard, and we're delivering a quality product to our customers and our members.
Thank you, Chris. Valerie, you get to back clean up on this one. What's your call to action?
Happy to do so. One, broadband service is essential and equitable access is imperative. That's one. Two, trust municipalities and other providers to fill the void where others that are maybe more profit focused aren't filling in that gap and that need. And then lastly, I think Coleman said it as well, competition is great for consumers.
Thank you, Valerie, Chris, Coleman, and Kent for sharing your time and insights today. Please join us next month, everyone, on May 25th at noon for the next CBO Lunch and Learn webinar, which we will feature a review from the Department of Local Affairs Broadband Middle Mile Program. Greg Winkler, Regional Manager for the Department of Local Affairs, will discuss where the department has invested, what it is currently working on with its partners, and where DOLA sees the future implementation of network expansion. Please register at broadband.co.gov and join us next month to learn more about Colorado's investment in critical middle mile and broadband infrastructure. Thank you for joining us today. A recording of today's webinar will be available on the CBO's website next week.